How are you doing, Mallory?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. So yeah, I know that you're running in the 6th, so I wanted to kind of know what was your deciding factor on why you wanted to run.
Well, I mean, I really felt called to this. I could have lived 100 lifetimes and never run for Congress. I did not have any career needs. I wasn't eyeing this to, be the next rung on the ladder for me in life. I was perfectly content. I've been a small business owner, a teacher. I worked in women's ministry. You and I were chatting off camera a little bit about that. I've homeschooled my kiddos, just had a great life, and really was not interested in politics, and didn't really think politics was interested in me. And until the past couple of years, what's been happening in the country and the speed at which it's been happening was very shocking to my husband and I. And we started feeling this call. I'm a Christian, and just really felt like God, there was an urging to be like, hey, I need you to get involved. I need you to do something. And my husband and I, we wanted to be part of the solution. It was shocking what was happening. It was heartbreaking. And then I hit a certain point where it made me angry, and I kind of haven't shifted out of that yet. It's like there's a very small group of very loud people in our country that are trying to define who we are, our history, and everything about America. And I wasn't okay with that. I have 3 kids myself. I mentioned homeschooling them, and somebody's got to fight. Somebody's got to defend them. And so it was really a calling, I feel like, is the short answer.
Yeah, I mean, we see it on campus all the time. There's kids who, they come into the college Republicans and, they want to be involved, but they're just so scared to go out on campus with us. And, what advice would you give to those kids who are just really scared to go out on campus and embrace their conservatism, grassroots?
This season in history, we all have to be completely allergic to fear. The people that hate our country, that really want to fundamentally transform us, are counting on us being afraid. And that's why they're so loud. There's no place right now in the truly saving of the nation, protecting y'all's generation so that you get to live and build and assemble and worship and do all the things that you should be able to do as a citizen of the United States of America, because you're protected from that. We have to fight for that right now. And so there's just no place for fear. I tell people all the time, I'm allergic to it. It's like, oh, okay, that doesn't work on me. Fear is a paralyzer. Fear makes people shut down and stop. We certainly saw this last 2 years with COVID. Everything just shut down. And so it's never been more important for students to just throw that thing off and just say, I absolutely refuse to give into that. Fear is just an emotion, and it's a manipulator. Like the government, there's been all these studies, and I mean, your viewers can probably attest to it better than I can even articulate it, that shows that you can control a very large group of people through fear. It's a tactic, and it's a way to handle the masses. And so it is just imperative. I would just say, rise up, make a choice, say, I'm not going to do that. When you feel like I've got to count the cost, stop and don't. Because if we count the cost for doing the right thing and being courageous and brave, we'll never get anything done. And they're hoping we won't. Our enemies, both domestic and foreign, are hoping that Americans will be paralyzed, that we will just cave under the attack that we're walking through right now as a nation, and we just can't do it. There's just no place for it. So I would say resist. Utterly and completely resist it.
Unapologetically love your country.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And you see with all those issues we have facing now, I mean, you see also a rise in just mental health cases.
Oh, I was just reading that the other day.
Yeah, I have been too. We actually were talking about that off camera before. Everything. You know, and it's just sad. But one thing when, we talk to kids about voting, they're kind of, they want to know which side of the aisle to swing on when it's Republican. So why do you think it's important that they vote more grassroots candidates in the midterms, and why do you think it will help our country going forward?
So when you read the headlines and you look at what's happening in the country, that's all being allowed and endorsed by and permitted by current leadership. And so you've got to look and say, okay, what is the majority of the leadership that we have now? It's establishment. You can look. I mean, the majority of the people look exactly the same. They have the same backgrounds. We've got a Congress full of attorneys and people that have never created jobs and owned small businesses, just bureaucrats. And so they are beholden to their own self-interest. The why someone is running, and that's what I would say to all your viewers, I would drill down so hard. And in life, I think the why somebody does, you don't just look at what somebody's doing, you look at why they're doing it, is very, very important, because we need leaders that it is a sacrifice. It is truly public service. It's not like a career move, like I mentioned in the beginning. that it is a sacrifice. I mean, I'm setting aside a really great life because I love my country and I'm going to protect my kids and their future to be sure they're free to do whatever they want to do. And so that why is super important. With a grassroots candidate, somebody who is not pushed into place by the machine and by the establishment, that's me. I'm not beholden to anybody. I'm beholden to you, my voter, and God himself, and the Constitution of the United States. And so you can't be bought, you can't be owned, you can't be controlled and manipulated when you're a grassroots candidate. So I would just urge all of your listeners and viewers to drill down, look at the background on everybody who's running, and ask the why. And be wise, because they will forget you when they get there. Almost instantaneously if they're there to make friends and be in the right groups and go along with the regular old politics. And let me just tell you, as an outsider coming into this, it didn't take me long to figure out why we're in the shape we're in, because of all these people that are there for themselves. And so that the grassroots thing, I would say that to everybody in every race in the country. Do not vote for an establishment candidate. And the cool thing about the Georgia 6 race is that they've done some early polling, and 72% of the voters do not want an establishment politician candidate, which is great for me. So I'm like, that's me. I'm that girl over there who's like unattached to anybody but the citizens. So it's a good deal.
No, and I tell people that all the time, you know, when you sit down with grassroots candidates, you know, you have to consider the fact, and I tell people this, and I tell them all the time, and I'll tell the viewers this, they had a perfect life. You know, you were, you know, a teacher, small business owner, mom, homeschooled your kids. You could have kept going down that path. And you had an urge that called you that you needed to go to Washington.
That's right.
So my last question for today is, why should the college kids who are at KSU and live in the 6, why should they vote for you? What voice will you give for them in Washington?
Well, in particular, I know this is part of the heartbeat of our interview, women make up 52% of the voters. So they should be represented. So I think being a woman, we are that balancing factor that's needed right now in politics. Men and women are different. We bring something else to the table. So I think the fact that it's great to have representation for the voters in being a female. The fact that I'm grassroots, as we mentioned before, the fact that I represent the small business community, the education community, I have the veterans endorsement. I am the Christian faith-based candidate in the race. I mean, I feel like I could go on and on and on, but you could really just stop on the grassroots thing and end it there because of what we mentioned. But yeah, I would say for all those reasons. And then of course, we need a fighter. We need, I say all the time, I'm going to be a firewall as a congressional candidate between the federal government and the people. And we have to have somebody who can stand the heat. Somebody who's going to say, listen, this is the right thing to do for the people. This is the will of the people. I don't care how you feel about me. I don't even care what happens to me, but I'm going to hold the line. And so that is, in a leader, you've got to have that. You've got to have fight, and you've got to have fire, and you've got to, and that loops us back to the why. If you're doing it for love of country and for your children, all those other incentives and distracting things that you can be lured with
in Washington,
they fall flat. They're just not even, they're not even interesting. It's not tempting. It's not tempting. So yeah, that would, for all those reasons.
Well, I appreciate you coming out there and speaking today. I know that, you know, you inspire me, so I hope I can take what you've given me and give it on campus to our college Republicans. So
I have no doubt you will, Emery. I have no doubt you will. You're so welcome. I enjoyed it. I'm honored. Thank you for having me.